Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Dubs. I'm your host, Bill T. Well, it's Friday, and not just any old regular Friday, but it's a legendary Friday. A Friday where I've got a podcast I've been working on for quite a while to try to get out to you guys, and it's been a really great podcast for me to record because I feel like I've made a friend, and I got a lot of history that I didn't know about, but we'll get into that in just a second. Before we get into this podcast, make sure you guys support Let's Talk Dubs. You can support Let's Talk Dubs several ways. One, go give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts so you get a shout out on the podcast, and that doesn't cost you anything. If you want to support the podcast, go to letstalkdubs.com and pick up some merch. That's another way to support your boy. Or go support the people that support Let's Talk Dubs. VW Trends Magazine. Go subscribe today at vwtrendsmagazine.com and go check out our friends at Ross Wolf. High performance aftermarket parts made by VW enthusiasts for VW enthusiasts with a commitment to quality and bringing out something new to the game every time. Go check those guys out today at rosswolf.com. Now I got a couple shout outs. First shout out goes out to my boy, Paul Iozio. Now, I bought a set of wheels from Paul. We're going on about 12 years ago. You haven't seen them yet because that car hasn't surfaced, but it's coming out soon. Paul supported the podcast by picking up some merch. I appreciate him. Also, another faithful podcast listener, Mark Lasky. We're going to get Mark on the podcast one day, but first, before we get him on the podcast, we'll get George from the Butcher Shop. He'll be coming up here soon. Next time I'm down in Southern California, we'll stop by and hammer that one out. A lot of history, a lot of bus stuff. All three of those names I just mentioned will be people that we'll be having on the podcast sooner or later. But today's podcast, Auto Haus is a name that is synonymous with performance, VWs, cow look, the whole 9 yards. The Auto Haus stores surfaced in 1968, started by Ron Rosevear and his brother Lynn. The story of this podcast that you get to hear is really incredible. From my summarization of listening to this, you'll realize that Ron was way ahead of his time when it came to business sense, ideas, and how to grow a business. They blossomed into 10 stores and had unique ways of maintaining their position, being the 800-pound gorilla in the market. I find it really interesting, some of the cutting edge techniques that they did back then that are popular nowadays. It's been great, and I've called Ron a few times. We talked back and forth. I have another podcast recorded that was kind of an impromptu podcast on a phone call, but I wanted to call him back and do a proper podcast. Now, Ron's had a couple health challenges lately, and Godspeed, hopefully gets better. He's got his lovely wife, Judy, there taking care of him, and they reside in Nephi, Utah now. But this is a great story of starting with nothing and creating something with drive, passion, and a vision. There's lots of cool history on here, from Micky Thompson to Bruce Meyers' ex-wife to Gene Berg and everything in between. It's a storied history of 16 years in a rapid pace, highly evolving hobby. And I'm excited to get to bring that stuff to you. There'll probably be some things on here that people have never heard before or didn't know. And the greatest thing about that, you get to hear it from the man, Ron himself. So I'm excited to bring this one to you guys. The Auto Haus history from Ron Rosevear, the creator and founder of Auto Haus, on Let's Talk Dubs.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen. It's got everything that people who like the bug like. So if you happen to see a good-looking Volkswagen, don't panic.
What's your VW story and how did you get into Volkswagens?
I'm originally from Salt Lake.
Right.
And I was about 20 years old when I decided that I needed to go to California because that's where all the action was, custom cars and the Barris brothers and all the action was happening in California.
Yeah.
So me and one of my buddies picked up and left and went to California. That was in, that was early 60s. That was about the 60s.
You were a car enthusiast just in general?
Yes, I was. I was the one that started the auto club called the Saints Auto Club in Salt Lake.
Oh, really?
I was the president. And I started that club. And then I started what I called the Combined Auto Clubs of Utah. Mm-hmm. And the reason I did was we wanted to put on a car show at ZCMI, wanted to kind of get everybody organized together. And I approached the president of ZCMI, and he allowed us to have the upper floor. At that time, they had the outdoor the garage. It was a garage, but it was out in the open. He gave us the top floor, the whole floor, for us to put on a car show. I combined all the clubs. We put on a car show, and then we had a float in the 24th of July parade. It was just a way of organizing everybody instead of people being against each other. We were kind of a group all together. When I left for California.
And that was 1968 when you left?
No, I left in 60.
Oh, in 1960. How old were you?
20 years old.
20 years old?
I'm an old dude, I tell you. I'm an old dude.
And you just decided, you know what? California's where all the cool car stuff is happening. I'm headed there.
The beaches and all the girls on the beaches and all the cool. One of the first things I did is I went down to Linwood at the Barris custom car garage where they were building the custom cars, shopping and channeling them and all that thing. And I was so shocked. This was nothing but a 10-car garage, and they were old buildings. And I thought it would be something just really elaborate, but he was producing some of those beautiful cars.
Oh, yeah.
From movie stars and everything. It was a great time, but I was into the custom car thing. I just really any custom car I'd see on the street in California, I'd stop and take pictures of it.
Yeah.
And but anyway, that's where it was. But it was in 1968. I was working for Motorola. I was a district sales manager for them, and I just got thinking, why am I working for somebody else when I can do this thing myself?
Yeah.
I decided to start the Auto Haus, and I rented the old bank building in Buena Park on Beach Boulevard. And if I remember correctly, I got it really cheap because I only had $5,000 total in my savings account.
Yeah.
I must have picked that bank building up really cheap, but it was a good building.
Now, what made you decide Auto Haus? Like, how did now you were a car guy, but you were into Volkswagens. You had a specific desire to be Volkswagen guy? No,
we had nothing to do with Volkswagens at that time. Mm-hmm. It was car stereos, Craig car stereos, Motorola car stereos, and tapes, and 4 and 8 track tapes, and that type of thing. That's what my whole business was started around.
So Auto Haus originally started as a stereo shop? Yeah,
it was actually, I had contacted Bob Craig, who owned the Craig car stereos, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he says, well, I'll put up a sign for you. And he put up a Craig car stereo sign, a big one, it was circular, it was turned around on the building.
Right.
Which I was surprised because I was still working for Motorola when he did that, and Motorola was the distributor for Craig car stereos.
Oh, really?
It was just a crazy time, but they didn't know what I was doing. Motorola didn't know I was in competition with them with my own shop in Buena Park. But my problem was I had to work during the daytime with Motorola, so I'd take off about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and come back into Buena Park and have my shop. But I contacted my brother. He was out of work.
And where was he?
He worked
in California.
He was working for he was down there. Mm-hmm. And he'd come down, followed me down, and he was working for North American Aviation, and they had laid him off. And I asked you if you would come in and run the shop for me during the daytime. And he said no, he wasn't interested because he felt like he was going to get called back to work. And he didn't want to interrupt anything. He loved his job at North American. And he didn't think that we were going to go anyplace with this business anyway. So he turned me down. I finally talked him into just coming in and running the shop till I got in there around 3:00 in the afternoon. So he finally did, but that was his original association with me in the shop.
So he just jumped in to kind of help out while you were trying to do.
Yeah, just to kind of help out because I said, well, if they call you back at North America, just leave and go. We had there was a little custom car shop up in Whittier, and they were making wooden door handles and some various different things that he was selling up there, and he was doing real well. And I even called him up and I said, can I buy some of the products from you, like chrome-plated ashtrays and glove boxes and stuff for Volkswagen? Because I could see that there was a market for Volkswagen. MP was quite strong and they were doing quite well, but they weren't covering. They seemed to be more into wheels and that type of thing than they were in the small accessories. So I just put a glass showcase in the shop and I loaded it up with chrome stuff for the dashboard and anything I could find for Volkswagens I put in there, and we started selling stuff like you can't believe it.
Really? And what was the name of the shop in Whittier? Do you remember?
It was something custom. I remember Chuck was the fellow. He was an older fellow running it, and his son would go out and chrome plate things and have them done and put in the shop.
Oh, okay.
But it was, they were good friends. They'd invite me out to dinner and everything. And actually, I'd become their competitor.
Oh, really?
In Buena Park because I was pulling, these kids were coming in from all over to buy whatever I had for Volkswagens.
Yeah.
And I thought, good gosh, this market is unreal.
So what was the first big, so you started bringing little bolt-on trinkets and stuff, door handles and window cranks and stuff like that for Volkswagens. What was the first big thing where you made a real investment and said, I think we're going to ditch the stereos and go into Volkswagens?
Okay. The first item was Andec Industries was importing from Japan a completely chrome header system for Volkswagens. Mm-hmm. And I bought a few of them, and I sold them out immediately. So I went to Andec Industries, and I made them an offer. If they'd give me exclusive distribution of their product, I would buy 100 header systems from them. And I did. And I rented a Quonset hut in Buena Park to store them in. They were selling as fast as I could get them.
So you see that the trinkets are working, the exhaust system, and in Southern California, Volkswagens have got to be just selling everywhere.
Oh, they were.
And it's like
they were a big thing.
It's the cool car of the time. You know what I mean? And even the older ones are still, because they look so much like a newer one. It's like everybody just buys old ones and tries to snazz them up, make them look newer and stuff like that, which is probably what made it such a successful platform on the aftermarket side.
Well, they were an easy car to work on. If you bunged up a fender, you just unbolted it and put another one on. They were definitely a kid's car. Mm-hmm. They were just easy to work on and pull the engine in and out and fix it and work on it. And they were fun to drive too. That was the great thing. They were fun to drive. They didn't have a lot of horsepower. And on the freeways, they were kind of having a tough time keeping up. But they were a fun car. They shifted easy and they were great.
And then, so after the exhaust systems and the bolt-on doodads and stuff, and you start to see like, man, this Volkswagen thing, I'm committing to 100 exhausts. Well, now we're going to back up for 1 second. The name Auto Haus, how did you come up with that if you were originally a stereo shop?
Well, me and my brother and his wife and my wife sat in my front room and tried to come up with a name. And somehow the name Auto Haus popped up. And I kind of thought, gee, that just sounds right. Something sounds right about Auto Haus.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to name the company Auto Haus. So that was a project my brother and myself and our wives decided on.
And then you have that name when you start to be a stereo shop, and then it kind of naturally fits into the Volkswagen thing.
Yeah. We painted a big Auto Haus name across the front of the building, and we still had the sign up that said Craig Car Stereos. And so I'd buy a car stereo and I'd come in there at 3:00 in the afternoon and change my clothes and go out and install the speakers and the units for them. As we sold them, we'd install them. But the thing that was really selling was the accessories.
Well, you move past the stereo, start doing the VW stuff. So do you decide, I'm going to put more time into this VW parts thing because I think it's a bigger market and we get, a lot more sales out of it than just somebody looking to do a stereo. VWs are so easy to work on. And because you're installing stereos at the time, or are you just selling the stereos?
I was installing stereos.
And so you figured it's easier to sell a product and not have to install it than have to install it with the changes of vehicles and stuff all the time.
Yeah, you're right. And I got to the point where our sales were enough that I'd hired a girl to kind of run the office and do the paperwork and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was having a tough time controlling going to work for Motorola, coming back and working part-time at my shop. So I just quit Motorola. And I remember that one of the bosses from Motorola came over and visited me, and he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "You're one of our," at the time he said I was one of their top salesmen, and because we had products, Motorola had products that were very easy to sell. They, again, were oriented towards the youth.
Mm-hmm.
And car stereos, and we even had a 33 RPM record player that went in the car.
Yeah, I've seen those. The car record player accessories, those were pretty wild.
Yeah, they were. There was a company in, I can't think where they were, but they were just a guy that was building them, making them, and with a wooden door on the front, and they were kind of crude, but the doggone things were selling.
Yeah.
The kids were getting anything, and we had 45 RPM car units, and we had everything for the car.
The guy says, "I can't believe you're quitting. You're leaving here. You're one of our top guys," and you just said,
I told him, I says, "This thing has just got so much potential," and he agreed. In fact, he even made the comment to me, well, he says, gosh, I'd really like to do something like this myself. And, being you're independent and having your own business is a lot different than working for a big company like Motorola.
Yeah.
Motorola was a great company. They took care of us. They gave us stock and all kinds of stuff. But you just didn't have the freedom. I've always been one that says if you're gonna make it, you have to take a chance.
Yeah.
You have to go, and you're gonna fail or you're not gonna fail.
Yeah.
But how are you gonna know unless you try?
That's it. And so you're starting out, and these are the early years. You now start switching to just selling automotive accessories for the Volkswagen.
That was pretty much it. Yeah, I finally got out of the car serial and the tapes. I had a lot of tapes, a whole wall full of tapes and stuff. And these kids would come in by their 4 and 8-track tapes and stuff like that. But I got totally out of that because the Volkswagen thing was the big thing. And I hired a fellow that I knew, and his name was Steve Richards. And Steve went out as an outdoor salesman for me, selling Andec exhaust systems.
Yeah.
And he traveled over to Arizona and different places. He was my outdoor salesman.
So he's your first salesperson, or he's
he
your
was my
first
salesperson.
employee.
Yeah, well, he was my first employee, yes. And He was really a likable type of guy. He was a big, heavy-set guy, but he was really likable, and he's into cars. He knew cars inside and out, and he was doing me a good job. But
so you said so you had already thought, like, I got to go outside of Buena Park, and this was in Buena Park, you said. And
yeah, we were in Buena Park.
You're like, I got to go outside of here and get other people to buy this exhaust, which is most people, when they open up a small shop like that, their thought is just like, well, we got customers, we got products, no need to go sell. Right. And you just always were you always fixed to a bigger vision?
Yes, I was. Mm-hmm.
So your thought was like, let's sell 4, how many can we sell of these?
We were selling as many as they could bring into the country of Andec.
Really?
Industries. Yeah.
And then it's Andec, E-N-D or E-N?
Yeah, A-N-D-E-C-K.
A-N-D-E-C-K, Andec.
And they were fully chromed exhaust systems. We had 36 horsepower, believe it or not. We had 40 horsepower, and of course the later 56 horsepower units.
So after the exhaust systems, what's the next big thing that makes a huge shift in your Volkswagen, like in the stuff that you're selling? Like, what's the next thing that you get and you're like, wow, this is great?
I went over into the Fullerton area by the airport, and I rented a building. And because I needed some backup area to put my exhaust systems in and that type of thing. And so I rented a building, and I decided that I had to expand. Mm-hmm. I had to control more. And so I went into the distribution business of VDO gauges. And I believe me, Bill, I don't remember how I got exclusive distribution for Southern California.
Because VDO is Germany, right?
Yes, Germany.
And so you contact them and say, hey, I'm a big deal here in California. You need to set me up as a distributor. And they're like, okay, we'll set you up as a distributor.
I must have been a pretty demanding person, because I did the same thing with Holley carburetors.
They had the bug spray.
Well, yeah, they had the bug spray, yeah.
Yeah.
But they wanted me to take the whole line on Chevrolet, Ford, carburetors and everything. And I said, no, I want strictly Volkswagen, the bug spray. And they gave it to me exclusively.
So so was your plan, I'm going to get exclusive, and then I'm going to get everybody to buy from me. So instead of me having just customers, I'm also going to sell to other dealers.
That's right. And I tried to keep the Auto Haus thing, the retail end of it, separate from the wholesale.
So did the wholesale part have a different name? Was it a different company altogether?
Rosevear Enterprises.
Rosevear Enterprises. I like it.
My brother had a friend that had a 10,000 square foot building in right by the Fullerton Airport. Mm-hmm. And he made me an offer, and I walked into that building. I said, good gosh, I'll never be able to use all this 10,000 square feet. So I put a wall down the center and divided it in half, and I used one half of it for Rosevear Enterprises and just a warehousing facility. And it was just a few months later, I tore the wall out, and I had to have the whole building. I was picking up lines, and everything I went for, they gave to me. I was pretty demanding. I had sway away, and I had fiberglass fenders and hoods and decks from a company that I really don't even remember what the name of it was, but I later bought that company out. Yeah, and we rented a 6,000 square foot building over on the Fullerton Airport, and I started manufacturing fenders, hoods, and everything for the Volkswagen fiberglass.
Out of fiberglass. So you kind of bought a fiberglass company out of business.
I bought a fiberglass company. I hired their employees and moved them to Fullerton, and I was the one that, if you bought a fender or a hood, it probably came from my shop.
Even though you're a distributor and a retail company, your biggest competition at the time is, I would guess, probably Impy.
I never had any problem with Impy. Joe Vitone, I got along with him, and we never seemed to conflict. Our products were somewhat different. It seemed like MP was. I don't know. I can't even think. I know MP was up in Riverside at the time, and we didn't conflict.
And to kind of give people perspective, Riverside was like the other side of the world to like the beach. I mean, honestly, back in those days, it was probably a 2-lane highway going out there that went for 30, 40 miles. And it seemed like forever. But, Impy had they had their specific brand and their performance stuff, and it was all brand similar. And then Auto Haus is, you're out there going after, I mean, it seems to me you're going like on a multi-tier attack, right? You're doing the retail, you're doing the wholesale distribution. And then at some point you get, because at this time back in the day, I don't know if you know Joe Horvath. So he was with Impy and then Revmaster. And, I've talked to him and he made, and back in those days, you would get your Montgomery Ward catalog and you'd get your Sears catalog, and they'd have parts and pieces and stuff in there. And then the catalog business is huge. It's like the internet is today,
Yeah. It was big. I took part of my building in Fullerton that was doing the fiberglassing in the back. And I took the front part and made it into a company called Autohaus. And I had people in there doing catalogs. And we were doing catalogs for our competition. They probably didn't know that we were our competition.
So then you hire a guy and say, look, go sell catalogs. I want everybody to make their catalogs through us. So in a sense, them paying you to make their catalog funds you to make your own catalog.
We did our own catalogs, and we did catalogs for other companies. And I hired a gal from Cypress College, and I called him up and I said, I need a graphic designer. And they sent me down a gal that was just perfect, and I put her in charge. And I said, now I want you to run this business. Yeah. I don't want to be bothered with it. And she did catalogs, she did graphic designs, and she did them for various companies like Motorola, surprisingly.
Really?
With Space Industries and McKinsey Automotive. We did McKinsey, and we did catalogs for various companies. And she had her own business going, but it was actually under the umbrella of Rosevear Enterprises.
And what was her name?
Judy. That happens to be my wife.
So you end up marrying
I ended up marrying her. Yeah, I ended up marrying her.
So
and
Judy's running the catalog side. Now, at some point during the building of Auto Haus, and it's not until, let me see what date it is on here. It's not until 1970 with VW Trends. How does that come to fruition? Because really, at 1976, the first issue of VW Trends is pretty much a catalog for Auto Haus.
Auto Haus, that's correct.
And so how does that come together? Now, and do you know, is it McMullen who had VW Trends?
Yeah. McMullen, my brother lived with him for a while.
Because I hear he was kind of a wild character.
He was a character, all right.
Yeah.
But anyway, he owned, what was it called?
Something to do with motorcycles.
Well, he had motorcycles, he had trucks, and he had Volkswagens.
Uh-huh.
And I was running ads with him, but he was hurting really bad because he couldn't get enough paper to keep his magazines going. There was a shortage on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so anyway, I made him a deal. I would put my catalog in his VW Trends book, and I didn't really think it was going to turn out that same way that it did. And I was even writing some of the articles. like we came out with I guess you'd call it a window up in the roof of the Volkswagen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the sunroof. Yeah.
Sun roof or whatever you want to call it. Moon roof. We call them moon roofs. And I would write the article under a different name so it didn't identify it as me writing the article. Right. And I'd take the pictures and do the installation and everything from McMillan's publications. And he had some other good writers too that was doing writing for him. But it was just one of those type of things that everything just kind of fell together. And I know that we were making some enemies. In fact, one of the companies called us the Mafia of Orange County Mafia.
Oh, really?
Well, because we had some things tied up that they like window winders and door handles. Mm-hmm. I bought out a company called gosh, I can't think of the name of that company. Anyway, they made wooden dashes. Remember the walnut wooden dashes and yep. all that stuff. And I bought them out and took all their equipment and put it in my building in Fullerton. And we owned the dies and the castings and everything. And I tried to tie it up so that I owned it. I didn't have to go to the outside and buy stuff.
And then if people wanted to distribute it, you'd be more than happy to set them up with a distribution.
Yeah, we give them their name if they wanted their name on it. We had our own skin packing equipment, and we'd skin pack items, and we'd do it under Auto Haus, and Race Trim was another one of our names. It was, I just tried to tie everything up. And of course, we made a lot of enemies in our competition because, here we had video tied up.
Yeah.
And if you wanted a video gauge, you had to come to me to get one.
Your initial drive was like, I'm going to be in the middle of everything. And my attitude is, I can either be competitors with them or their supplier, one of the two. And I'd rather be their supplier because it's easier if I can sell it and they can sell it. And then if they outsell me, that's great because I'm still making money selling them.
That's right. Yeah. They were buying the product from me, even though they were my competition. John Lazenby came into the effect because we hired him as store general manager, mm-hmm. and he was really good at it. My brother, I was a wholesale, and my brother was a retail. By now, my brother was fully entrenched in the business with me. Mm-hmm. And we opened the Costa Mesa store, and we had the Buena Park store. We had one in Orange, one up in Pomona. I can't even remember. We had about 11 retail stores.
Yeah, I talked to John Lazenby, who worked there as a general manager. Then I talked to Ed Craig, who's another.
Oh, Ed. Yeah, he was very prominent in our business.
Yeah, another guy. Because from them, I was trying to get the feedback of like, what was it like to be a young guy working at the coolest place to buy cool stuff for your Volkswagen, and you're a Volkswagen enthusiast? I mean, it's one thing to work at a place and you're just a guy who works at this place. It's a different thing if you're into the hobby and you also work at the place where you got to buy all the cool stuff.
Yeah, we had some good employees.
Yeah.
We had some good people, good dedicated people.
And now, do you remember, is there anybody that, as you're assembling this business and putting things together, anybody that was, obviously the people referred to you guys as like the Orange County Mafia or whatever, but like, who did you get any trouble from, or not trouble, but like anybody that was really frustrated with you, and then you just worked with them to say, listen, I'm on your side too, you just got to buy it from me type thing? Like, I mean, do you remember any companies out there that were like that, or people that, were like,
well, yeah. We had Clyde's Buggies.
Claude's Buggies, so CB, which turned into CB Performance.
Yeah, he's the one I think that nicknamed us the Orange County Mafia.
Oh, really? Claude nicknamed you guys the Orange County Mafia.
Claude's Buggies, yeah. And of course, they were up north, and but we were their competition. There was Mr. Bug. And then there's another one called Bug something.
Bug Pack.
Bug Pack, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And these were actually competitors. And like the Volkswagen tow bar, Bug Pack actually had the first tow bar. But I thought we could redesign that tow bar, and it was a big seller.
Oh,
The
really?
Volkswagen tow bar was a big seller. So I had a company in San Diego take the Bug Pack tow bar and redesign it by putting crossbars in it and making it what I called stronger and better. And we would buy hundreds of tow bars at a time from this company, Jim's Trailers in San Diego. And then I went to Chenoweth, and I had Chenoweth build us a race car, an off-road race car.
Yeah.
And it had our name and everything right in the steel and the metal and everything. It was called the Auto Haus. It was a single-seater, a two-seater. We had them. So we were covering the market, off-road market. And now at this time we had a lot of off-road products in our warehouse. That's how I got into the off-road racing myself.
So did you actually race cars?
Oh, I did. I raced the Baja 1000, the 500. Troy Donahue, the movie star, was my racing partner.
Oh, really?
And Micky Thompson was a very good friend of mine. And Micky and myself used to sit down and just go over things.
And how did you meet Micky Thompson?
I met him through John Kennedy. John Kennedy's wife, Beth, worked for him. Mm-hmm. And I invited Micky to come out and talk to us as a group one time. As all our employees, we went to a restaurant up in Riverside, and he came out and spoke. And then from then on, we become good friends. And Micky was one of those type of guys who he thought way out.
Yeah.
He thought even further out than I did.
Really?
And he was always promoting and helping, and he was quite a promoter. In fact, I did some video work for him. I had a video camera, professional video camera, and they were putting together a movie on his life, and I did a lot of video work for him, and I took the video tapes up to his house in Bradbury Estates in Pasadena, mm-hmm. and to give him the tapes. I gave him the tapes, and 2 days later, he was shot and killed. Him and Trudy.
And now,
that was really
you knew him fairly well, and I don't know a lot about that time in history, but do you have any takes on what may have happened with him, or that was just too far?
I may have. I know who was involved, and he was later arrested.
Yeah.
But it took quite a few years before they arrested him. But I had an idea who the guy was. He wrote me a letter one time and asked me if I would testify against Micky in favor of him, and I ignored the letter, and boy, I wish I had that letter today. But anyway, he called me on the phone one day, and he asked me if I would again testify against Micky. He had this lawsuit going, and of course he lost I think it was $750,000. Mm-hmm. He lost to Micky on a business lawsuit, and I don't really know all the details because I wasn't involved in any way.
Right.
But somehow he thought I was involved with Micky.
Oh, really?
And yeah, but he disappeared. At the time it happened, he was off on his yacht up in the Caribbean someplace, and he hired these two fellows to kill Micky and Trudy. And I don't think they meant to kill Trudy, but she just happened to be with him in the driveway. And when they drove up on their bicycles, they were on bicycles. They rode up on their bicycles. They caught Micky and Trudy in the driveway, just getting ready to go into his office, and he shot him and killed him and Trudy.
Yeah, that's insane how things like that are so close in time and how they're happening with you just delivering those tapes that you did for him, and then 2 days later, that happens, and for it to be
that was, and that movie's never come out. I think his son has the rights for it. I'm sure he must.
Yeah,
but since they had it just about finished, the work I did for him was at Riverside Raceway, and they strapped me in the back of a pickup truck with this big camera on my shoulder, and we, down the racetrack we'd go taking pictures of him and everything.
So you're the everything guy. You're the cameraman. You're the catalog maker. I mean, you're like a Renaissance man. You're just going. And do you think it's more like you love to get things started. You got a good team behind you that can keep it going, and you love to keep going after the new stuff. Is that kind of what
I believed in a lot in promotions? Yeah, well, that's why we were involved in the bug-in.
So let's talk about that. Promoting were you involved in the first bug-in?
Yes.
How does that come together?
With Rich Kimball and there was some people putting together. I can't think of the guy who actually owned the bug-in.
Vic. His name was Vic.
Yeah, Vic. He had he had a big cabin up in Mammoth, California, or someplace up there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was involved, and the bug-in was a good promotional thing for us.
Sure.
We sponsored it, and we promoted it, and we allowed other people to come in and promote it if they wanted to. And we did. I think Bugpack came in and promoted one or two of the Bug Packs, but it was actually Rich Kimball and this Vic. I can't think of his last name.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Anyway.
So you saw that as because one of the things we spoke about before is because you're so big into promoting, you were giving away T-shirts. You said you were giving away T-shirts.
Oh my gosh, we would buy. Somebody approached me and said, "I have Hanes T-shirts, factory seconds, and you can buy them for 50 cents a piece." And I said, "Send me a couple and let me look at them." And I couldn't find anything wrong with them. Yeah. But he said they were factory seconds. Mm-hmm. So I bought I'd buy like 500 at a time. And I'd send them up to Riverside and have our name put on them. Auto Haus and Race Trim, we did them under a couple of different names. And I'd give them away at the races. We'd go and pass them out, and we'd just give them to anybody who wanted a T-shirt.
So
and of course they'd wear them, and that was our promotion.
So you love the fact that even as you're building a company, you wanted to hand out more shirts so your competitors get more frustrated seeing everybody wearing, like, now that everybody's buying his T-shirts. Meanwhile, you're handing out T-shirts for free promotion for Autohaus, which is pretty great because, I mean, in today, branding is such a big thing. It's always been a big thing, but there wasn't a name for it back then, right? It was just like, how can I get more people to think, Autohaus when it comes to buying their VW parts? So I
gave away thousands of decals.
Yeah,
and
I've seen some down at Mike's Sky Ranch on the Baja Trail. I've seen a couple original stickers on some of the glass over there, the Autohaus stickers.
Right, we take them down to Mexico, and the kids would love them.
Yeah,
they were peeling the decals off of the race cars, stealing them off the decals. So I just started passing them out. And the decal was a big thing. We had a 7-inch, what we called a 7-inch decal. And the reason we designed it that big was the fact that what does a photographer, when he's taking a picture of a race car, and he's 50 feet or 1,000 feet, 100 feet back, what decals show up? and Pennzoil showed up, and it was a 7-inch oval. So I designed it after the Pennzoil 7-inch oval, and that was designed because of the photographer taking the picture. So that was just my way of thinking.
So you kind of reverse engineered it. Like every time I see a photograph of a race car, what stands out to me, and that's what I'm going to design my sticker after. Like that's the shape, that's what I'm looking for.
That's right. Yeah, when you sit in a magazine, and it was normally VW Trends magazine,
right?
Or Hot VW was the other magazine that was a big seller. And I hired a guy by the name of Jer Alhadef.
Yes.
And Jer was a photographer, and he photographed for not only VW Trends, but Hot VWs and Hot Rod magazine. He was a big photographer. He'd been injured in an accident, and he had a big steel plate in his head. And so I hired him, and he worked for me as my photographer for quite some time. And he had the connections to get us on the back cover of certain magazines, and he was very instrumental in that. But he had this metal plate in his head, and he'd have to lay down and sleep part of the day, but I kept him on my payroll, even though he was, that was part of his problem.
And now Jer, how did you meet Jer?
Well, I don't remember how I met Jer, but anyway, he evidently was doing some work for us, but some photography, and we try to get like the back cover of the VW Trends magazine or Hot VW magazine.
Yeah.
We very part what I see. My mind is thinking all the time. When you throw a magazine down, front or the back. So if it goes on the face down on the front, the back is the part you see. And you see the Auto Haus a car on there with a model in it or something like that. And Jer would do that work for me. And my wife would actually do the layouts and everything.
Very cool.
In fact, yeah. But that's the way my mind was always thinking, how can I get that name in front of people?
Right.
And I'd have people say, hey, I was over in Italy and I pulled up on a Vista, Overlook Vista, and this car pulls up alongside me and had Auto Haus decals in the back window. And I'd have people come up to me and tell me that kind of stuff, and that just made me feel so good.
Yeah,
get that name any place I could.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it's really a testament to how many, nowadays they look at a sales tactic and they say, there's 7 points of contact before someone will buy something from you. And before that, you just all you keep going over in your head is, how can I get maximum exposure of my company?
My wholesale was what I was really involved in. And so I took over the warehouse and all the marketing and that type of thing. And Lynn did the stores, retail stores. He was mainly spent most of his time down in Costa Mesa.
Mm-hmm. And how far apart were you guys in age?
6 years.
So he was younger, or?
He's younger, 6 years younger. Yeah.
Okay. And is Lynn still around?
No, he died about 10 years ago.
And he was living where?
Up in Oregon.
Oh, okay. So
Washington, someplace up there. He had some property up there. He was living up in there.
Yeah. And so we're looking at Auto Haus. Is there kind of a couple, there's the early days, the middle days, and then towards the end, right? What were kind of the best times that you remember? When was it the busiest, the most growth? And then when did you start seeing things changing?
Well, it's hard to say because we seem to have a growth pattern going on during the told the time that I had. That was 16 years, and when my financial consultant said that we should bail out because the Volkswagen wasn't going to be built in Germany any longer, and he advised us to bail out of the business.
So that's like 79 when Volkswagen starts moving their production facility to Mexico and stops building the Beetle. He says,
well, they were building in Mexico, but the Mexican Volkswagens were not really well accepted with most of the people.
Right.
And the parts and everything were not the quality that the Germans were.
And now you were... So there have been a couple things that I've heard. Like someone said, one of the reason why Auto Haus went out of business was they went to this newfangled computer system and it wasn't working right and all this kind of stuff. Was the closing of Auto Haus a calculated move? Like, listen, we've seen the growth pattern. It's peaked. It's either we switch gears and start a rebuild phase going after different type of cars, or just close it up. Like what was the outlook?
Well, we didn't have any problem with the computer systems. That was the Triad system out of Salt Lake. Mm-hmm. And they had developed software especially for us, and it worked. It was we had all each store had their own computer, and they could check into the warehouse, and we could check into each store, and there wasn't really a problem with that. Most of the things that we were doing, like the computer system, and then we had the burls. Mm-hmm. If I remember, they used a stripe on the cards, and the girls would stripe it in, and they'd put the information into the computer off of the cards. I can't remember exactly, but it was an early system. It was put out by Burroughs, mm-hmm. And that was probably the thing that gave us the most problems. It was the most inaccurate and that. But I don't think we had any major area that was causing us to go out of business, other than the fact that the Volkswagen was not available any longer.
So were you seeing, was there always a percentage of your business that was new Volkswagen owners buying accessories for their cars?
Yeah, it was. We had our biggest business was our wholesale business with our dealers that we had across the United States. Mm-hmm. As far as dollar volume it was the wholesale business. The retail business was more costly and to operate the stores and that type of thing. But I don't really remember anything being other than both my financial consultant and my he was kind of like a Jim Carter was his name, and he was an attorney, decided that we would best just close up.
Really? So did you start to see like distributors, people, other dealers you would sell to their orders started dropping, things were getting smaller, they were changing gears and going after different cars?
No, I didn't. I think Mr. Bug went after some of the truck market, mm-hmm. the mini truck market.
Yeah.
But after 16 years, I was tired. I was just ready to wrap it up.
And was there anybody that would like, because you guys, Small Car Specialties was around at that time, right?
Yeah.
And did you notice any effect of them opening up down there in Orange County? They were in Orange County, right?
Let's see, were they the one that opened in Riverside?
I think they were.
Small Cars.
Yes, Small Car Specialties, from my understanding, was like a subsidiary of Claude's Buggies that opened up in Southern California. and then
Oh,
eventually the guy that was running it just kind of took it over and made it a separate thing altogether. But that, those guys are in business. Like I think though the heyday for those guys is the mid to late 80s, and you guys closed down in what, 84?
yeah, 84. Mm-hmm.
And it was just all of a sudden it was like, okay, we're going to wrap it up and we'll close by this time, or
Yeah, it was just like we had a meeting with the financial consultant people, and it was just decided that we just close up, and we did. But I don't remember small car accessories.
Yeah, small car specialties. Yeah,
specialties or whatever. I think that's the one that my brother went to work for after we closed up.
Yeah,
and my son went to work for McKinsey Automotive with Jeff Quinn. There was a company in Riverside that was doing real well. I can't remember what their name was, but I was after we closed up, I was building Baja blower systems, which was the helmets, fresh air helmets.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I built those for the fire departments in Kern County and LA County, and I built a lot of them, hundreds and hundreds of those systems.
And
I was living in Lake Elsinore at the time, and they were used on bulldozers, and when they were fighting the fires up in Yellowstone, every bulldozer and everything had my system on it.
And these were like a Parker pumper type system, like a fresh air.
They were exactly Bob Maynard developed them, and they were a Parker pumper exact type of unit, except the fire department did not want the hose coming into the shin. They didn't want the air blowing up into the nostrils. So I brought the hose through the back of the helmet, took the lining out of the helmet and put grooves in it so the air blew over the top of the head and came down over the top of the forehead. And that was done that way because that's the way the fire departments wanted them.
Now, did you start developing that before you closed Auto Haus?
Yes, we had the Baja blower systems for some time. See, I bought out BMR Off-Road in Garden Grove. That was Bob Maynard's, and it was called Bob Maynard Racing, and we changed it to Baja Motor Racing. And John Kennedy ran it, but that was my business. I bought it out from Bob Maynard. He's still in business down in
Palmdale,
Costa Mesa, someplace down there.
Yeah.
He was in the equipment business, concrete cutting and rental business, and we were partners for many years.
Now, when you would buy these companies, like you bought the fiberglass company and you bought the company that made the window cranks and those types of things, what did you keep the owners on and make them an invested partner, like part of the business? So in other words, they would watch that business, because that's a lot. If you've got all these subsidiaries of companies, it's difficult to keep track of those things.
Yes, it is. But now the fiberglass business, they didn't want to stay on. They just wanted to sell out.
Yeah.
And so I hired people, and I don't even know where I got them from, but they were in the fiberglass business doing fiberglass. And my son Larry was kind of in charge of the fiberglass business over in the Fullerton Airport. And the other business was, they were two partners, and they weren't interested in continuing on. They just wanted to sell out also. So I moved all their equipment over to my plant in Fullerton, and that was, they had dyes that we had to buy from the dye companies, and it was, I don't know, it just seemed like a simple thing to do, and it just happened, and we just did it.
Now, a couple of questions. The Auto Haus logo, where did that come from?
Okay, Marion Rebel of MG Minton up in Pasadena was putting out a catalog, and I noticed there was cartoons all throughout the catalog. I called Marion up and I said, Marion, who's doing your cartoons? And she said that it was Dave Deal. And Dave come down, and I told him what I wanted, and he made me a couple of cartoon cars, but he was wanting to put it like a big Chrysler engine in the back of a Volkswagen. And I said, no, I don't want an American engine in a Volkswagen. I want a different design. And he brought me the design with the little car with the guy sticking his head out the window and, you know, the Auto Haus design. And I says, that's perfect. And the surprising thing about it was he didn't want any money.
Really?
No, at the time, you know, he did me two designs. One was called Race Trim Products, mm-hmm. and the other one was the Auto Haus design. And Dave Dill lived up in Julian, and he just seemed to be content with. I gave him some products. I think he wanted some VDO gauges and stuff like that, and it was a situation where he could have made a lot of money off of that deal, but he didn't.
And now Race Trim, who came up with the name Race Trim?
That was the window winders, the product name that when we bought out the company, we bought out Auto Gear of California. Okay. And they had their window winders were called the Race Trim window winders. And then, but
go ahead. So the rest of the stuff you started manufacturing after that?
Well,
like the valve covers and the intake manifolds and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We bought the dies for those. The one of the first things I think we bought was the side covers. Like MP had them on the side to put air into the Volkswagen.
Yeah, the scoops.
The scoops and the Volkswagen bus and both the car. And we bought the dies on those, and I don't remember who was selling them, but they had the dies, and we bought them and started producing those and skin package them, and we skin packaged them for other companies, Bug Pack and various other companies bought them from us with their own name on them. But that was our first product. The valve covers, Race Trim valve covers, and gosh, I don't know. We had so many different products being made for us.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had sumps, you had windage trays. I mean, all the performance stuff was under the Race Trim name.
Yeah, Gene Bird didn't like us.
Now, did you know Gene on a personal level?
I knew Gene, yes.
And he didn't like you guys. What was the issue with that?
No, we were greatly in competition with him. We tried to get him to sell us products, and he wouldn't do it. And he said no. He said, you guys are nothing but price cutters, and he got really upset with us. And when Bilstein shock absorbers came into the country, they offered them to us, and of course we didn't think much of them. They were just a shock absorber. Mm-hmm. And Kurt Del Foss brought them in, and he also ran them to Gene Berg also. Well, we went ahead and took the line in. They were cheap at the time. They were like $19.95 per shock absorber for the Volkswagen. So we ran an ad for $19.95 because that's what we were told they were going to retail for. And Gene Berg ran an ad for like twice that amount on the same shock absorber.
Yeah.
And he was very upset with us because he said we undercut him. Well, we didn't. We did what the manufacturer told us the retail price was going to be on them. But those little things, we just had, those little contentions type of situation. We did price cut. There's no doubt about it. We wanted to give the customer the best deal we could. But anyway, that was our association with Gene Bird.
Now, did you? I see in the catalog. Was it Dean? Was it Dean Lowry that was working with you guys on some of this stuff, or was it?
Yes, yeah, Dean Lowry. Yeah.
So, what was Dean's association with you guys? Would he help you guys test things, or he would help develop product?
He had some products we bought from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember. There were mostly speed items like the valve. Well, I don't think the valve covers came from him, but
manifolds and stuff.
I don't know. Yeah.
So Dean Lowry manufactured things, and you guys would just have him private label it for you.
Yes.
So
yeah.
it would be the same as like a Dino Dinosaur product, but it would say race trim on it. Maybe he would have it made to where it said race trim.
Yeah. It was that type of a deal. Paul Schley, we kind of put Paul Schley in business with his tools.
Oh, did you? How's that?
Well, he came to me. I believe it was the tool that you put on the flywheel to hold the flywheel so you could break that big bolt off the back of it.
Yeah, the flywheel lock.
Yeah, that was it. And there was two models. There's a 6-volt and a 12-volt. And he came to me with that idea, and he said, I want to sell these to you guys. And I says, well, okay, good. And I gave him a purchase order for 100 each of the 6-volt and the 12-volt, which to him was a big deal. He took the purchase order to the bank and borrowed money against it to make the tools. And he came back later and thanked me and told me, he says, that's the only thing that put me in business, got me started in business, was that purchase order you gave me for that quantity of tools. Well, we had enough retail operation, enough things going on that 100 tools was no big deal to us. No, he's always been good friends with us. Paul Schley has. In fact, he called me just not too long ago and I shipped him a few more T-shirts and stuff that I had. I guess he has some kind of a little museum or something down there.
Yeah, he does.
So I shipped him some stuff that I had here to put in this museum.
With regards to some of the guys around there at that time, besides Paul Schley, I mean, I would think a lot of people would bring you some pretty gimmicky stuff to try to sell. Just to try. I mean, obviously, if you get into Auto Haus, you get into all the stores, right? So you remember any kind of off the wall stuff people tried to bring you to sell that comes to memory?
Okay. Armorall. The owner of Armorall, or the developer of Armorall, came to me with that product. And I had my car sitting out in front, and he went out in front and he polished the wheels up, or did the wheels, the tires, and they looked great. But he wanted me to carry the product. And I told him I wasn't interested, and I didn't want to get into chemicals. And he says, well, let me do this. He says, I'll put a case in each of your stores. I think at the time we had about 6 stores or 7 stores. Mm-hmm. Says, I'll put a case and consign it to you. And if you sell it, fine. If not, no big deal. And at the time, the company is called VIP Products. And that was one deal that was kind of pushed on us on a consignment. I didn't believe in consignments at all. Yeah. I didn't like consignments. But anyway, it worked, and all of a sudden that product took off and sold like firecrackers. Our warehouse was loaded with Armorall products, boxes of Armorall. And we were distributing Armorall, but that was a product that I would have not taken on.
So a guy said, I believe in my product enough to give you some free, so take this for no cost. If it sells, great. If it doesn't, I'll pick it up later.
Yeah, that was the type of deal. It was just strictly a consignment.
Now, did you guys sold all the performance products, the SPG roller bearing cranks and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got, we gave SPG their largest orders for cranks, and they couldn't supply us.
Really? How many cranks did you order?
We ordered like 50 at a time.
Wow.
And it was a big deal for them, and we could never get the quantity we ordered. It was always a back order situation.
You guys would have no problem selling that kind of stuff for any performance things, because obviously people are coming right into your... right
No.
into your shop. Now, did you, at that time back then, did you notice that VW people were pretty particular about what you had for sale in the store? I mean, because today VW people are pretty critical on the people they shop with, right? And it's almost like you've got to have credibility with the customer.
It had to be made in Germany. Mm-hmm. If it was VW. The big bore kits were NRP out of Japan. Anything that came out of Mexico was not accepted.
Really?
In fact, the Baja blower systems I had to change the name to strictly blower systems to take Baja off because the fire department wouldn't buy them thinking they were made in Mexico.
Oh, wow. Now, did you guys, I guess by this time by 68 when you opened up, Bruce Meyer, I think he's already come and gone and out of business. Or did you ever have no run-ins with him?
His wife, Barbara, called me up one day. I had an airplane, and I flew to Catalina Island all the time to get their buffalo burgers.
Yeah.
And I was just getting ready to fly to take off and go to Catalina in my airplane. I usually took my bank manager with me, and we'd go over there. And I got a call from Barbara Meyers. I didn't know that she was going through a divorce with Bruce, mm-hmm. but she called me up and she says, I'd like to talk to you. And I says, okay, but I'm getting ready to go to Catalina Island. And she says, oh, I'd just love to go and get a burger over there. And I said, well, come along with us. And on the way over, we're flying over, and she makes me an offer. She says, I've got some Meyers Minx molds, fiberglass molds. And she says, would you be willing to fiberglass and make me a couple of cars? And she says, they're a new design with a lift-up door on them, like the Mercedes-Benz had.
Right.
And I said, yeah, we'd be interested in that. And so when we got back, she brought us these molds over, and we started building there was a name for that particular car that she had. And I found out that she was divorcing Bruce. Mm-hmm. Well, we got the police department showed up, and they said, where'd you get these molds? And I told her that where they came from, and they said, well, they were stolen. They don't belong to her. And so they confiscated the molds. We'd already built one car, and I think we were on the second car. And they took the car and the second car and all the molds from us. And that was my association with Barbara.
Oh, wow. So it was kind of a little bit of a sneaky move there she was doing, huh?
Yeah, she was. And she was real nice about it and everything. And she apologized and everything. She says, well, through the divorce, I thought they were mine and this type of thing. And I stayed completely out of it. I didn't want to get involved in it in any way. When the police department picked everything up, I just gave them whatever they wanted. And that was it.
Now, this was this was the Manx SR dune buggy that they had?
Yeah, it was an SR. It had a top on it. It wasn't an open car, a convertible. It was had a top with gull wing. They called them the gull wing doors on them.
Yeah, like the flip up. They had a flip up forward door.
Yeah, and I don't know, the one we built was a complete car. And I don't know where it ever went to, and I've never seen it in any magazines. I've never seen anything on it after the fleet.
Now, did you guys, during that whole fiberglass car phase, I mean, I know you guys made the hoods and the flared fenders and all that stuff. Did you ever make any buggies?
No, we didn't. No, that was Bruce. Bruce Meyers had the buggy business. Yeah, he was really strong entrenched in them, and he still is. I still have people ask me, did you know Bruce Meyers? I say, yes, I did. Do you think you could get one of their buggies for me? And here I'm up in Utah, and they're wanting me to sell them buggies.
Yeah, that's too funny. Yeah, I interviewed Bruce a few years before he passed away, and heck of a guy, and a really great story. You know, with it seems like so many people in the VW world start because they love the car. Like, you know, talking to you, you said your first Volkswagen was the second one sold in Salt Lake.
Yeah, it was from L.H. Strong, for Dave Strong, L.H.'s son. Mm-hmm. It was his car, but it only had 125 miles on it when I walked into the showroom, and I said, I'd like to buy a Volkswagen. They said, well, we're back ordered on them. There's none of them available. But we are the dealer for Volkswagen. They'd been the Hudson dealer, and they gave up the Hudson car, and they took on the Volkswagen. And I bought the second one. It was 40 horsepower, underpowered.
Yeah, and that
was
your first Volkswagen. And from that, I mean, now after you close the business and don't have Auto Haus anymore, do you still have Volkswagens after that, or what do you do? Because you're definitely a guy you're a car guy, right?
My wife has a Volkswagen little red convertible.
Oh, really?
Sitting out here in the garage. Yeah, a 2004.
Nice.
Yeah, the newer Volkswagen, but it's a fun car to drive. But I wish it was an older one. I wish it was a 67 or 68.
Yeah. So looking back at all these years of, you know, everything, and really, I mean, you're 80, how old are you? 88, you said?
I'm 88.
So you're 88 years old, and from the time you're in your mid 20s until what, mid 30s, late 30s, early 40s, you're in that business. And so you've lived another lifetime outside of this. When you look back at your time at Auto Haus, do you have a lot of really great memories about learning about business? I mean, did you go to school for business, or this was just...
No, I didn't. I just had a theory that if you wanted to try something, you had to do it to make it work. Yeah. If you failed, and just try it again. And one of the magazines wrote me up an article about me, and they said everything I touched turned to gold. Well, everything wasn't successful. There was failures along the way, but I felt like you had to do it to do it. I mean, if you could sit and talk about something all day long, but it's not going to happen if you don't make it happen.
Now, and you look back at that time, what was, let's say, was there any really bad purchases that you ever made, or something you invested in that you thought was going to be a real zinger and it turned out to be a dud?
Well, evidently there wasn't anything that was really a dud. It seems like everything I did do turned to gold. It was just like everything worked.
Yeah.
And when you're making money, you're not afraid to spend money,
right?
To make things work. If you don't have the money to do it, that's when you hesitate, and you've got to be really strong when you want to make money. You gotta have the desire to do it, and just go ahead and give it a try. But you know, we had a lot of success. We opened a store in Provo, Utah. It was a franchise store, mm-hmm. and I was in the process of getting the store in Las Vegas. We had an airplane. We had a 6-passenger airplane that I flew. Both me and my brother were pilots.
Oh, wow.
And my son was a pilot also, Larry. And we would shuffle for it. It was a 6-passenger with a rear door on it, so you had room to put. I could put about 1,000 pounds of products in it and fly it to Provo, Utah. That was kind of the highlights of the business, was having that aircraft.
Yeah. And now when you did your franchises, you had stores that you owned, and then you had, like, if you had an employee that wanted to leave, you would say, like, well, why don't you just start a franchise of Auto Haus somewhere?
That's right. Well, Ed Craig was one of those.
Yeah. Yeah,
Ed Craig had one of our franchises, but he was our employee, and then he decided he was going to go open up himself. So I made him an offer that you just buy products for us, and we'll help you finance it and get it going. And we just, our franchising program wasn't an expensive thing. It didn't cost a lot. Ron Greiner had one in Orange. It was an old store of S&S auto parts, and he took a franchise with Ron Greiner, and we had Bill Chowski had one in Pomona. San Bernardino was a franchise. We were really liberal. All we wanted to do was move product.
Right.
A lot of product. And I think we're quite successful at it.
Yeah. Now, did you guys ever have any affiliations with any of the car clubs in Southern California?
No. Mm-mm.
So you made it clear to not affiliate with anybody like that, just to
stay
neutral.
had to stay neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you look back at that time, you look at the way people collect all these things now, like the race trim stuff is highly collectible. The Auto Haus stuff is really collectible. How do you look at that when you look back at history and you think like, wow, something I did, which was a small part, which was a 16-year portion of my life, which we know if you've ever raised kids, you know how quick 16 years goes by, right? And when you look at that little section of time that you spent doing the Auto Haus stuff, what do you think about how everything that you've done, a lot of the pieces that you guys were developed, you and your brother and all the stuff put together, that it's all become collectible and highly sought after this time?
Well, I'm proud that we were able to give something to the industry. The Volkswagen industry was a very important part of what I figure in my life. And so much so that I wish I had one of their cars now.
Yeah.
But, it's just, I'm stuck up here. And when I say stuck up in Utah, I don't mean stuck up here in Utah. I'm here in Utah, and the Volkswagen deal isn't a big deal out here.
Right.
Where in California, it was a big deal. And I had people calling me up and say, didn't you own the Auto Haus stores? And I'd say, yes, I did. Well, can you get me this or can you get me that? And I'd say, well, I don't have any associations any longer. I have no connections to get that kind of stuff. And I'd usually turn them over to McKenzie Automotive.
Yeah.
And I'd say, call McKenzie and talk to my son. He's a manager down there, and he'll be able to get things for you, like shock absorbers and things like that. But it's something that was just part of my life, but it just seemed like it was so easy.
Yeah, it seemed like you were at the right opportunity at the right time.
We were. That's definitely right. The right time.
I mean, to go from starting from nothing to having a plane and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, we were very, very lucky, and things worked out just real well for us. And it was a good combination with my brother running the retail stores, and because we didn't get along real well. We had our problems, and I was just happy to have him in Costa Mesa, and I was in Buena Park.
Yeah, it's interesting with brothers, I mean, I've got a brother and we get along great for the most part, but when we disagree, we really disagree,
Oh, yeah. Well, I was more business oriented than he was. He wanted to be friends with everybody. His employees, he had employees that we knew were taking things from us, and he would just play it over. And that, see, I had an open door policy as far as my office went, but I didn't take any foolishness. If there was a problem, the guy was gone.
Yeah.
And he was one that just wanted to make friends with everybody. And so he was the nice guy and I was the bad guy.
Right. Good cop. There's always got to be a good cop, bad cop scenario, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Same type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
and he had a good man. He had Ed Craig and he had John Lazenby. They were good people to to have on your payroll.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it's a long time. It's quite a story of growth, especially when I look at how quickly you went from a retail store to really focusing on wholesale distribution, which is, I think, really where there would be way more opportunity to make money by having, and you have less of a sales force because your dealers are selling for you. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah. And my son Mark, he kind of ran my warehouse, and I had an office with 4 girls in it doing office work. So I can't remember how many employees I had in the warehouse, but there wasn't that many. But the warehouse was the money-making end of the thing. And I tried to stay pretty much into the Southern California part of it, because if you spread out, you got retail stores, you're in competition with the people you're selling to. That doesn't normally work. We stayed right in Southern California with our stores, and I figured I'd get the business in California through the retail stores, and the wholesale business that we would do through the catalog business. And our catalog business was a big business. The UPS trucks would back up 2 or 3 to our dock every day, picking up products. We shipped a lot of products.
Yeah, there's a lot from a business standpoint to figure out logistics and to maintain profitability with shipping costs and all that stuff, and trying to be able to really turn it around really quick. You know, there's lots of layers of that. Now you mentioned that you were going to open a store and possibly in Las Vegas. How close did that come to happening?
Well, it would have happened if it hadn't been for the franchise store in Provo, Utah, decided to move to Southern California. And he up and sold out. In fact, I think the store's still there under a Volkswagen name there in Provo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But anyway, he moved to California. He actually was a Porsche mechanic, and he was good at building Porsche engines. Mm-hmm. So he moved to California, and that stopped our operation out of California. But I was looking at locations in Las Vegas. We didn't have anything finalized. It probably would have been a company store, because I didn't have a franchise interest or anything like that.
And what year was this that you guys were looking at?
Oh, it was very close to the time that we were closing up.
Yeah.
So it had to be 82, 83, something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's there's so many things that that you guys have been involved in that 16-year period of time, just to be able to be distributors and bring so much to the market, which then makes so many more offshoots of collectibles, because the cool thing at the time was to buy, the Bilstein shocks and the race trim intake and the Holly bug spray and the big bore kits, and you could get them from you or from Impy or wherever. But, there's so many parts and pieces in the catalog that seem to be, things that now today are very collectible. And then the exhaust systems that you guys were making, who was making those for you?
S&S.
So S&S, like S&S Headers, was making those?
Yeah, down in Costa Mesa. Mm-hmm.
And so you had good relationships with all those guys, because
oh yeah,
you'd walk in and say, "Here's a PO for 100 exhausts. Can you let me know when you can get them?"
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
the thing to impress a company is, if you're going to buy something from them, buy a big quantity.
Yeah,
and that now S&S, of course, made the exact same headers for themselves under the name of S&S. What we boxed under Auto Haus, but we sold literally hundreds and hundreds of header systems under the Auto Haus name, and it was no different. It was the same exhaust system. Betty McCullough and I can't think of the fellow that owned S&S. We were just a big customer for S&S.
Sure. And then the years you off-road raced, how many years did you off-road race?
Almost the full 16 years.
Really?
I sold my race car in 84.
In 1984. What kind of race car was it?
It was a Funko two-seater, class 1600 two-seat. And it was made by Funko.
And who you just randomly sold it to a person, or you remember who you sold it to?
Oh, I can't remember who bought it.
Now, were you ever successful in racing off-road? Did you ever get any wins?
I took third place almost consistently. In fact, I was known as the third place owner of the third place slot.
Yeah, so you were always coming in third, huh?
Yeah, they never could get better than third. I think I took second place in one of the races up north, but it was always third place. I couldn't. I wasn't fast enough.
And who built your motors?
Yeah. Revco.
Oh, really?
And my son built race engines for years. He built transmissions too.
Mark or Larry?
Mark did.
Mark built the engines?
Yeah, he built them in his garage at home.
Very cool. And who do you remember being your competitors back then?
In racing?
Yeah, in racing.
All the big names: Steve McQueen, James Gardner. Oh gosh, there were so many names I can't remember. They were all the big names.
They'd all come to try to race the 1600 class, huh?
No, they were racing just a lot of times. We were just racing. All the classes would race together.
Really?
But they would start the classes according to the top end speed, like the trucks would start first because they were so fast. And then they'd start the class 1 and then the class 2 cars. And it was just like, I was trying to think one of the races, like in Las Vegas, Bent 400. Mm-hmm. We started the Thunderbird Hotel, and they staged us in the parking lot of the Thunderbird Hotel. And you draw a name, you draw a number, and that was your racing starting. I drew that particular race. I drew number 36. So I was a 36 car, and there was 120 something cars racing. And Steve McQueen was in front of me. And I remember he had a broken leg.
Really?
He talked to me. We talked about the broken leg, and he said it would be his last race, that he would be the studio would allow him to race because of getting hurt. You know, he was too valuable as a movie star than he was getting racing. And I remember, I can't think of his name. One of the major racers, Petty or one of them, was behind me, and I remember him walking down the line, and we were sitting in the car's stage, and he walked down the line. He walked up to me and he says, "Do you know who I am?" And I says, "Yeah." And I gave him his name. He says, "Well, get out of my way, stay out of my way, because I'm coming through." And I thought, "You jerk."
So
okay, we'll see it. And he did. He passed me very quickly, and then he rolled.
Oh, yeah.
And he rolled over and tipped the car over.
That's funny.
It was. But James Gardner was one of the greatest guys I ever met.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, he'd come into our pits at nighttime. We'd have a bonfire going, and he'd come in and sit down and join us and have dinner with us. And all kinds. He was just a super guy. Now, Steve McQueen, he had a little attitude problem. And I asked him one day, I said, "Steve," I says, "I noticed that your attitude problem's kind of catching up with you." He says, "I'm so sick and tired of people running up and asking for autographs and throwing paper and pencil in my face." And then after I talked to him about it, then I understood why he was acting the way he was.
Yeah.
He just wasn't friendly with anybody. He just wouldn't talk to anybody. He'd walk off, and he's just right in the middle of a conversation. And But then I understood why he was that way.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't leave him alone. He was just,
just wanted to be there to race and couldn't just
Yeah,
relax.
Couldn't relax, couldn't do anything. He was a great guy, but he had an attitude.
Yeah, that's wild.
Of course, I met him earlier. His brother, Justice McQueen, was building a home in Thousand Oaks, and he called me. I had a store in Oxnard, and he called me, asked me if I'd help him hook up speakers in his home he was building.
Mm-hmm.
And I went over there, and I was upstairs. It was built out on stilts. It was kind of over the edge of a hill, and there was somebody underneath the shoveling. I didn't know who it was. It was Steve.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he come up all dirty, had his shirt off, and he was sweaty and dirty. And his Justice introduced me, says, "This is my brother Steve." And at the time, I was too interested in anything, but we just met, and I'd met him earlier. So he was a great guy, but I had a lot of good customers when I had my hi-fi store in Oxnard.
Oh, yeah. Now was Big Daddy Roth a customer down there at the stores?
He was. He had a store in Knoxbury Farm. I don't remember exactly what it was. He had some kind of a retail store in Knoxbury Farm. We were just down the street from Knoxbury Farm, Buena Park.
Yeah.
And he'd come down and he'd buy video gauges and stuff from me. And we got talking one day, and he told me about how he'd gone to Cyprus to buy a car. And when he got down there, the woman who was selling the cars at the dealership gave him a Book of Mormon.
Oh, yeah?
and he was so impressed with it that he ended up marrying her.
Oh,
and
wow.
They moved to Manti, Utah over here, and he just died, of course, just recently. But they had a Big Daddy Roth day every year. They just bring cars in and custom cars and everything over to Manti. That little town would just light up, and it was a big deal. His wife was really active in promoting him.
Yeah. No, it seemed like those were the heydays of the automotive industry, as far as especially the 70s, because everything, if you turn on, you watching the reruns from back in the days, there was dune buggies and all kinds of stuff on TV at the time. They even had, cartoons, a cartoon dune buggy and stuff. And the whole Volkswagen craze was just, it seemed like it was everywhere back then. So
it was.
Anything that you want to share with our listeners about, just your time in the hobby and anything you want to just tell people about that whole experience or that whole thing?
Well, it was a great experience in my life. I met my wife during that time, and she's the love of my life.
Yeah.
I've been really sick, and she's been my nurse. I'll tell you, she sure takes care of me.
Well, if you like that podcast, make sure you subscribe to Let's Talk Dubs so you don't miss any new and updated content we're bringing to you. Let's Talk Dubs is the largest Volkswagen podcast out there, with over 267 episodes out, this making 68. We bring you the most in-depth coverage of the history of the hobby from the beginning to the end and everything in between. And we take you on that adventure because I have just enough knowledge to be a little bit dangerous. I appreciate you guys all for listening. Go subscribe to my YouTube channel to find some video content, as well as my brother's channel, The Wagon, if you want some really cool how-to videos. Don't forget, One Crazy Weekend coming up October 3rd through the 5th at the Orleans Hotel and Casino. And I also have you guys know, we'll be down there, Adam Wick and myself, will be live streaming from the Engine Dyno Shootout that's going to be taking place June 15th at Impy's Open House. So if you guys are going to be there that weekend, I'll be down there figuring out which car I'm going to bring, but I'm excited to get down there for that weekend. That's going to be June 15th at the Impy Open House. So I look forward to seeing all you guys there. And until next week, later.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen.